This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good-looking friends. In yesterday's video, I laid the groundwork for today's discussion, which is crucial for understanding the full picture. I strongly recommend watching that video first, as it highlights undeniable inconsistencies in the narrative surrounding Samantha Markle and Meghan Markle's relationship. While there is a connection between them, I believe it's not familial. The video presents factual, publicly accessible evidence, and I encourage you to check it out if you haven't already. Today's video builds on that foundation with all evidence drawn from the public domain. I've included links in the description for those who want to dig deeper and draw their own conclusions. Recapping, I explored court records from the New Mexico database under the names Samantha Rasmussen, Yvonne Markle, and Yvonne Hale, all tied to the person we're told is named Samantha Markle, Meghan's alleged sister. These records revealed discrepancies in her name change story and challenges the claims of a close relationship with Meghan during their childhood, as Samantha was living in New Mexico for the most part, per the government records. This contradicts her now unavailable book, raising questions about why it's no longer for sale. Today, we're diving into Florida's court cases involving Samantha to better understand what happened during that period of time when she claimed that she was being cyberbullied. Back then, few recognized the propaganda and disinformation campaign surrounding Meghan and Harry and the whole Markle alleged family. Looking back, the drama and key players point to a coordinated effort with a clear agenda. Samantha Markle, a public figure, brought attention to her claims of online harassment, stalking, and cyberbullying through her televised interviews, print media, and vocal online posts. She defended her criticism as a First Amendment right, and since the information is public, it's open to fair critique. In today's materials, I've redacted names and personal details to respect privacy to those who unfortunately cross paths with these people. So in order for all of us to be on the same page with what I'm about to present, I think it's important to quickly recap what was going on back in 2019 when no one was really paying attention. Before I get into this, if you could do the kid a favor and hit that like button, you know that it always helps the kid out. I really do appreciate it. So to recap, Samantha Markle claimed in 2019 to be a victim of cyberbullying, stalking, and hacking, filing a criminal complaint with the Polk County Sheriff's Office in Florida. She alleged that between 2018 and 2019, she and her boyfriend, Mark Phillips, were targeted, with hackers accessing their devices and exposing private information, including her social security number, forcing multiple relocations for safety. Samantha went on a media tour, including an interview with Fox 13, discussing these claims. Now, reflecting back on this, it's clear the media played a role in shaping public opinion and subtly eroding perceptions of not only privacy, but also for free speech. I previously argued that Samantha isn't the free speech advocate she claims to be, nor is aligned with the MAGA movement. Evidence from her past tweets, liberal college affiliations, and the broader Markle family actions, like supporting the Ukraine war, criticizing Donald Trump, discussing race, bashing Prince Harry and the royal family, and recently expressing pro-Palestine views, suggests otherwise. I believe, and this is my opinion, this is part of a military-grade psychological operation using disarm tactics, which is something that I've covered in my psychological warfare series, showing you how the Sussex Squad bots, Christopher Boozy, Sarah Data, all had been working together in attacking pretty much this community and people online who criticize Meghan Markle. Now, during that series, as well as the Biggest Fraud Alive series, I had exposed saying that the Markles and Meghan, despite appearing as adversaries, share a goal of pushing for internet regulation. Lawfare, in my view, is a tactic used by both Meghan Markle and Samantha Markle. Both have been, in what we have seen, vexatious litigators. So now turning to the Florida court case database to pick this up, we see records of Samantha's legal activities. However, suspiciously, the documents aren't publicly viewable. Now, this could be due to various factors like sensitive information in the cyberstalking case, prioritizing Samantha's safety. However, I suspect Samantha is the one who requested closing off these documents, possibly not for safety, but to obscure details. And that's my opinion. The case was dismissed, and despite her appeal, she lost again. So why the secrecy? Well, now, since the case documents are inaccessible, I had to be creative with other search options. And for our purposes here, I am aware of information that has been released on X that some people believe is the person that Samantha had went after. And now she is posting again all the information pertaining to this case or parts of the investigation that had been done by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. I have looked at it, and it does raise some questions. However, I'm not going to be able to talk about it because I cannot verify where it came from and who it came from. So for our purposes today, the information that I'm presenting to you is coming from a credible and validated source, which is the Polk Records Online Polk County, Florida database. As you can see here, if you want to go and look at it, the link is below. So since the case documents for Samantha Rasmussen, otherwise known to us as Samantha Markle, are not accessible, I found another public record by searching the database creatively. You see, a small claims case was filed by Mark Phillips, Samantha's boyfriend, against an innocent woman, which does give a glimpse into what is actually being hidden. It seems to me that they overlooked sealing this case that fell into small claims court, or as Samantha would like to say, seal the hatches. But we're going to look at it because not only is it public, but Samantha Markle is a public figure. Information that is identifiable, like address, phone number, as well as full name of people who are mentioned in here that are private, have been blurred out. But for our purposes here, being that Samantha has brought this to the public world and the topic has directly affected people like you and me, we're going to talk about it. So as you can see here, Mark Phillips, Samantha's boyfriend, is the one who filed this case for damages in small claims court. So what we're going to do now is go through some of these documents that, as you can see, are publicly available. Starting with the statement of claim that was dated on March 6, 2020 for 3 pages. Beginning with the cover page, as you can see here, Mark Phillips, who submitted this on March 6, 2020, wherefore plaintiff demands judgment in the sum of $8,000 plus all costs of this action. The undersigned, being by me first duly sworn, says that the foregoing is just and true statement of the amount owing by the above named defendants to said plaintiffs, meaning Mark Phillips being the plaintiff and the person blocked out is the defendant, exclusive of all set-offs and just grounds of defense, and that the action has been brought in the county in which venue is proper, pursuant to Chapter 47, Florida statutes. As you can see here, subscribed and sworn to before me this 6th day of March, 2020. So now let's move on to his statement of claim. This is what he submitted. And as you can see, it's quite a doozy, so get comfortable. Dated March 5th, 2020, statement of claim begins as blank of, and that's the address listed there, Stevensville, Maryland, 21666, the respondent in this civil action. Mark Phillips of, and that's the address of where he is in Lakeland, Florida, 33809, do state that the defendant did willfully, with intent to do harm, committed defamation, libel, and slander, and currently has a stalking injunction in place, has cost myself, Mark Phillips, and my girlfriend, Samantha Markle, in excess of over $30,000 by forcing us to move 3 times by posting our address, harassing us, posting our court documents illegally, contacting Polk County sheriffs, and Oakland or Lakeland police. countless times with false reports and information, posting our telephone numbers, accusing us of fraud, tampering, and forging our own documents, posting hundreds of times that myself and my girlfriend are court-substantiated child abusers from dismissed 5-year-old court case involving a minor, a crime. I have over 400 pages of evidence that will be brought to court. The defendant has forced us to move 3 times, has admitted to a Twitter post of hacking our security cameras and posting what she saw us moving and more. Evidence will be brought to hearing. We have police reports in Matthews, Virginia, Ocala, Florida, Polk County, Florida, and Maryland in which she confessed to harassing us. The other police reports list threats, intimidation, harassment, stalking, and posting our private information. It took 3 years to get her identity as she mostly harassed us on Twitter using the avatar Kai Native and several other alias accounts, and was using an app, according to Detective Melody of Polk County Sheriff in his police report, that made it impossible to trace, and that's the defendant. Broke her phone she was using to harass us with and used her husband's phone, which was traced to her immediately. She was charged with harassment by use of information. She has made our lives a living hell for 3 years and has made it her full-time job to harass us with over 25,000 tweets attacking us and put us in fear of our lives, even enticing other Twitter trolls to get us or direct message with our whereabouts. So putting the handwriting aside, we'll talk about that a little later on. You hear what was the problem from Mark Phillips, not necessarily from the direct case that Samantha submitted, but he pretty much summarized what was going on, or at least that's what they were telling authorities. So the important thing to understand here is that they're accusing this woman who is from Maryland, which is going to be important in a second, of doing all these things. So now going back to the docket list, the next document of importance is this affidavit from the defendant, otherwise known as Kai Native, formerly known as Twitter. So to make it easier on everybody, I'll refer to this woman as Kai Native. And this is the affidavit that Kai Native had sworn to and signed, and where she writes or testifies, "My name is Kai Native. I'm over the age of 21, competent to testify and under penalty of perjury of the laws of the Commonwealth of Maryland, state as follows. I am a resident of and am domiciled in Stevensville, Maryland. I have resided in Maryland since 2001 and in my present home since 2007. I have never had a residential presence in the state of Florida. I do, however, own property, vote, pay taxes, and maintain vehicles in Maryland. As of today, I, Kai Native, own or lease no real property in Florida, maintain no mailing address in Florida, do not own or register any boats, vehicles, or planes in Florida. Including businesses and pleasure travel, I do not spend any more than approximately 3 days per year in Florida, for example. My personal attorney, Mr. Bradford A. Patrick, practices in Riverview, Florida. I personally do not have any businesses, nor do I have any officers or employees in Florida. I'm not authorized, registered, or licensed to do business in Florida. I do not own any real or personal property in Florida. I do not own and or have registered any boats, vehicles, or planes in Florida. I do not maintain any bank accounts or pay taxes in Florida. I do not directly advertise anywhere, much less particularly in Florida. For these reasons, I believe general jurisdiction over me is proper only in Maryland." So to close off this, it says, "I swear under penalty of perjury that I have read the foregoing and is true and correct." Signed by the person who is Kai Native on Twitter. As you can see, it's been notarized and it is a legal document. So if this turns out to be a lie, which it hasn't, she could have gone to jail. So now when we go back to this docket and we look at the motion for leave for defendant to appear telephonically and to order plaintiff not to capture any images during video hearings, there is some juicy information as to what really started all of this, which is something that we need to understand first before we understand what really happened here and what is going on now. So before the defendant, Kai Native, goes into the actual facts and background, they make it a point to state that, second, the evidence in this case will show plaintiff, meaning Mark Phillips himself, has a lengthy history of online abuse on social media, mainly Twitter, including harassment aimed directly at defendant, her husband, and her family. Defendant has a well-founded and genuine concern that images of her counsel, and or this court itself may be captured during any video. And this was the purpose to filing this motion for video to be removed from the actual hearing. But then now they go into the actual facts and history of what really transpired, of which it states, specifically, the court should be aware of the timeline of legal activity involving the parties. In January 2019, defendant, meaning Kai Native, demonstrated how a court order Phillips and Markle posted on Twitter claiming to be proof that a child abuse case against them was dismissed, was changed, and or forged. Thus began a campaign of mutual animosity which continues to the present. In July of 2019, Samantha Markle, girlfriend of plaintiff Mark Phillips, filed a misdemeanor police complaint against defendant Kai Native for online harassment, which was investigated by the Polk County Sheriff's Office. After a full investigation, the state attorney declined to prosecute the defendant Kai Native after winnowing the various claims asserted by Markle down to a single issue of one online posting potentially constituting publication of personal information. 1. Markle and Phillips, as well as a hired publicist, so Samantha has a publicist, are engaged in a pattern of behavior calculated to develop notoriety on the internet. Exhibit A, at 2, Markle told police she had screenshots in folders on her computer, including quote-unquote slander and quote-unquote Twitter criminals. Markle turned over her computer and 3 cell phones for forensics analysis by the PCSO, 2 of which were alleged to be hacked mirrored. PCSO obtained a subpoena directed to Google to investigate Markle's claims her Google Drive had been accessed. The analysis, completed on July 29, 2019, revealed none of the devices had been hacked. None of the content on Markle's laptop was found to be in violation of any Florida statutes, and all was protected speech under the First Amendment. Exhibit A at 2. With respect to the Twitter accounts complained of by Markle, the ringleader account Markle described was found to have no harassment. The other Twitter accounts complained of found no harassment after extensive review. The investigator did find numerous interviews, news releases, and photos released by Markle herself in an effort to drum up attention online. Markle and Phillips were responsible for sending more than 500 individual emails to PCSO during the investigation, an average of more than 5 emails per working day for 6 months, plus dozens of phone calls to investigators trying to shore up their claims. Exhibit A at 2. ASA Copley described an additional effort to gain notoriety where Markle and Phillips claimed they were involved in a car accident which A, never took place, B, never had a police report filed, C, was claimed by them to be like an incident which happened to a member of the royal family in England years ago. Gee, I wonder who they're talking about. But D was characterized by ASA Copley as a fiction, a shameful and inept attempt to garner more publicity, which impinges on Markle's credibility. So now here's an interesting piece. It continues to say the decision not to prosecute defendant Kai Native was issued on December 17, 2019. Plaintiff Phillips and Markle both filed anti-stalking petitions against defendant on February 4, 2020. An order was granted to plaintiff as against defendant on March 4, 2020. The judge also advised defendant that had she filed an anti-stalking petition against Phillips and Markle, it would have been granted. So in other words, saying that had she done it first, she would have been awarded it because both parties had been guilty of going back at each other back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right there. You might be asking, well, why did this continue on? Why did they agree to continue with the hearing when it should have been dismissed? Well, the answer is this person, Kai Native, is guilty of posting one post, of revealing information of Samantha. They might be saying one post caused Samantha to file an injunction and restraining order against this woman who lives in Maryland. You would agree with me that something just doesn't seem right. For whatever reason, in that docket, the exhibits that were referenced in the defendant's background story and factual history were not included. So how do we know if the narrative that's being spun there really is representing what really happened? Well, I don't know if it was intentional or stupidity on Mark Phillips' part, but he included those exhibits in his response to the so-called factual background and history that the defendant had put forward. Exhibit A was the Polk County Sheriff's Police report interviewing the defendant Kai Native and questioning her. It's very important that we look at it closer. So now this report was filled out by Trent Medley, who was the investigator on this case, representing the division of BSI Homeland Commuter Crimes Unit. And in the summary narrative of interviewing Kai Native, so just a quick note, there's a reference to your affiant. Your affiant is the one who is swearing that this testimony is accurate and true, meaning the person who is logging it or whoever asked these questions. It's not actually the person themselves that they are interviewing, which in this case is Kai Native. The summary says, beginning on 7/16/2019, the victims, Mark Phillips and Samantha Rasmussenmarkle, filed a report, and I don't know what that word says, to online harassment with the Polk County Sheriff's Office. It was advised this harassment was taking place over social media, specifically Twitter. While conducting my investigation, your affiant learned the Twitter account user Kai Native was reported to be the so-called quote-unquote ringleader. Your affiant conducted a search of the Twitter page for Kai Native for any threatening statements, and none were located. The page appeared to be aimed at questioning when Miss Rasmussenmarkle will release the book she keeps talking about, and further bringing up public record incidents to include and previous alleged child abuse incident and car crash. While searching the page, your affiant observed previous tweets from Mr. Phillips to quote, "Got you. Look in your mailbox for restraining orders, civil paperwork, criminal charges for targeted harassment, hate crimes against a woman in a wheelchair," unquote. Another one to follow was quoted as paperwork processing. "How do you like me now? Think I'm going away? I'm wondering what ABC will think of your vile tweets," unquote. I noted the tweets made by Kai Native do have several hashtags for hashtag Samantha Markle or hashtag Mark Phillips, bringing them to their attention. Your affiant noted Ms. Rasmussenmarkle has completed multiple interviews, news releases, and photographs which have been released to the public, many of which are mentioned on the Twitter accounts in question. Now, on 9/17/2019, your affiant was pointed towards a new Twitter account, @MarksTrunk13. A post was completed by this user which contained Mr. Phillips and Mrs. Rasmussenmarkle's personal home address, phone number, and email information. Both Mr. Phillips and Mrs. Rasmussenmarkle advised they didn't give anyone permission to post this information and had no idea who the user was. A subpoena request was completed the same day to Twitter for the suspect account at Mark's Trunk 13. On 11/4/2019, your client received a response from Twitter in reference to the request for the user account at Mark's Trunk 13. The following subscriber information was provided. So as you can see, Twitter went ahead and provided this information and included IP address, phone number, all those things I had blocked out because I'm not sure if this account is even open anymore, as well as I don't know if the phone number is tied to somebody that is still using that number. Again, I don't want to dox anybody in this case. Your client, meaning investigator, conducted a check of the creation IP address via maxmind.com, which returned as being assigned to Atlantic Broadband with a general area of blank. Your client, meaning investigator, also conducted a check of the phone number via zetx.com, which returned as being assigned to Verizon Wireless under the registered name X. On 11/5/2019, your client, meaning investigator, drafted a subpoena request to Atlantic Broadband for the IP address listed there, as well as a request to Verizon Wireless. On 11/12/2019, your client, meaning investigator, received a response from Verizon in reference to the phone number of the respective results. The following subscriber information was provided, as you can see, redacted. Your client, meaning investigator, contacted Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office, who confirmed the subscriber address was within their jurisdiction. Your client was put in touch with Detective Marie Bassaro, who advised she would assist with the investigation. A copy of your client's agency reports were sent for Detective Bassaro's review, who advised she would follow up once contact was made with the occupants of the subscriber address. On 11/15/2019, your client, meaning investigator, was advised by Detective Bassaro with the Queen Anne's County Sheriff's Office an interview had been conducted with the suspect, meaning Kai native. Detective Bassaro stated she had made telephone contact with Kai native, who agreed to provide a statement. While on the phone, Detective Bassaro advised suspect Kai native had asked, "Is this about Samantha Markle?" Below is a summary of the information provided to me by Detective Bassaro of the statement provided by the suspect Kai native. So now, as you can see, the statements listed there are coming from Kai native, confirming the use of the cell phone number, who the phone belongs to, indicating that the phone is broken, but giving her actual contact number, as well as stating these other important details. So they're claiming that Mark and Samantha had posted personal information of another user, essentially doxing those people. Admits to putting up Samantha's address and number because she thought it was wrong that they doxed somebody else. And yes, she is confirming that she is Kai native, also Mark's Trunks 13 and another account. She also indicates that the reason for why she posted the personal information on Twitter was because she thought they were online bullies and thought if they had their personal information posted, they would take down what they had posted about this other user. Well, plot twist. So if I am reading this correctly and I understand it correctly, it appears that Samantha Markle is guilty of doing exactly what she's accusing this woman of doing. And being that it was Samantha and Mark who were the ones that essentially doxed and bullied someone else on Twitter, Kai native, her whole reasoning for doing what she did was to give Samantha and Mark a taste of their own medicine. Kai native testifies that she never sent any threatening messages, just shared already public stories and would tag the usernames of Mark Phillips and Mrs. Rasmussenmarkle, indicating that this had been going on since September of 2018. The affiant, who is the investigator, then notes it should be noted this statement was audio and video recorded, and a copy of the statement was later received around 11/25/2019. So this woman is on record saying all of these things. Based upon the above information, the suspect, Kai Native, did willfully and without authorization possess or use personal identification information concerning a person without first obtaining that person's consent, and did so for the purpose of harassing, a violation of FSS 817-568-4, harassment by use of personal identification information. As of 12/12/2019, your affiant, meaning investigator, has received, get this, in excess of 500 emails from the victims and dozens of phone calls in reference to this investigation. And the victims are Samantha and Mark. So I'd like to point out here that Samantha's state ID card shows New Mexico. So as you can see, the investigation had been completed and filed on 12/12/2019 by Trent Medley. That was Exhibit A. So now you've seen the report that was filed by the police. Now you get to see what the state attorney says in declining this prosecution and locking this woman up. This is what he writes back as his decision. I have to read this out because it is so good. So in this case filing evaluation, Kai Native, the defendant, was charged with harassment by the use of personal identification information, which is a misdemeanor. The prosecution's decision is to decline it, and their reasoning was, we have received a misdemeanor complaint affidavit. The original report and 10 supplements from the Polk County Sheriff's Office in this case. The Polk County Sheriff's Office worked diligently on this case and requested that our office issue subpoenas to social media platforms to obtain more information. The subpoenas were immediately sent out, but some platforms were extremely slow in responding to the subpoenas. The Polk County Sheriff's Office conducted a thorough investigation and forwarded the aforementioned complaint affidavit to this office based on a probable cause standard. Probable cause is the measure of proof that all law enforcement must meet in order to bring forth charges. Prosecutors have a different and higher burden of proof that we must meet before bringing formal charges against a party. Our burden of proof is beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt. The two differing standards of probable cause and proof beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt are in place as a product of intelligent design in our justice system in order to protect the rights of all parties. The case before us fails to meet this higher standard of proof beyond and to the exclusion of all reasonable doubt necessary for prosecution. So apparently Samantha's on record saying that her boyfriend, Mark Phillips, as well as her publicists were all three victims of harassment taking place over the internet. She told the detective that this harassment and threats have cut her off from the public and are interfering with her ability to make a living. Apparently, she is creating income from self-promotion, including utilizing a publicist in an attempt to achieve notoriety. During the interview, the complainant advised that she had screenshots of the harassment and threats, and those items could be located on her laptop under files titled Twitter Criminals Slander and several untitled folders. She also advised that her Google Drive had been accessed and her personal information had been published on social media. The complainant turned over her laptop and cell phone to the deputy sheriffs conducting the interview, and these items were transferred to the Polk County Sheriff's Office computer lab for analysis. A detective who is an expert in computer forensics was assigned to investigate the allegations on July 19, 2019. The detective went to the complainant's residence and obtained 2 additional cell phones, which the complainant stated were hacked/mirrored. That same day, the detective requested the office of the state attorney issue a subpoena to Google, which requested account information. That subpoena was sent that same day. The computer forensics detective completed this examination of the 4 devices on July 29, 2019. Let me make sure I read that again. His examination of the 4 devices, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 devices were in possession of Samantha Markle Rasmussen. His examination showed that there were no background programs on any of the cell phones that would allow unauthorized access. In other words, they were not hacked. The laptop was examined, and none of the content was found to be in violation of Florida statutes and were all covered by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution concerning freedom of speech. The detective then conducted an extensive inquiry into the content of the many Twitter accounts reported by the complainant. The complainant reported a particular account as the quote-unquote ringleader in the harassment against her. When examined, the account shows no harassment and was mainly concerned about when the complainant was going to publish a book about her life. Let me read that again. When examined, the account showed no harassment, meaning the account native showed no harassment and was mainly concerned about when the complainant was going to publish a book about her life. But the real nail in the coffin is this last paragraph where it says an inquiry into all other Twitter accounts showed no threats against the complainant after an extensive search. The detective did locate multiple interviews, news releases, and photographs which have been released to the public by the complainant, Samantha Markle. Many of the complainant's allegations were about people publishing pictures and or information that the complainant herself had placed on social media in an attempt to create publicity for herself. It is a discerning fact that the complainant, Samantha Markle, and her boyfriend, Mark Phillips, have sent over 500 separate emails to the assigned detective and have made dozens of phone calls in an effort to shore up their allegations since July 19, 2019. That is an average of over 5 messages each working day, Monday through Friday, for 6 months. Sounds like to me the investigator should have taken out a restraining order against Samantha. 500 emails in 6 months badgering this detective? Holy cow. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this here and allow you to pause it so you can read it yourself. But this is the response to the factual information that not only the detective but the state attorney all had provided. And when you look at it, you'll realize what's going on here. But in essence, they're talking about all these thousands of pieces of evidence that they're going to bring forward. Now, you know where this is going, and I'll get to that in a second, but clearly they are trying to keep this grift going on. Anyway, go ahead and pause it and read what that response was to the actual information and facts that were presented. Anyway, after that was submitted, then there was the issue of the trial and notice of hearing. What ended up happening in December of 2020, there was a motion filed for a continuance due to extenuating circumstances, which was Mark Phillips somehow going and breaking his hand so that he couldn't write, nor could he gather the thousands of pieces of evidence that they were going to bring to court. This is the note that Mark Phillips gave to the judge. Your Honor, I have had surgery to my right hand and have found it to be a major hardship as I am right-handed and can't even pick up a pen or sign my own name. My doctor thinks about another month and I will be able to do. So there is a paperwork mountain of evidence for me to handle, and I have a temporary medical hardship right now. Thank you for your time. And anything 1 month or more would work. Now, if you aren't able to tell already, Samantha and Mark Phillips did not have lawyers representing. They were representing themselves. And this is why this looks so amateur. But in any case, the judge denied this request and then also dismissed this case because of the lack of evidence. Now, they keep saying they have mountains of paperwork and evidence that they wanted to submit, binders filled. I'll tell you what I suspect had gone on. Now, if you think that this can't get any worse, allow me to go ahead and turn this up just a little bit more. So now when we go back to this case that you cannot see any of the documentation, gee, I wonder why that is now. What you'll find out is that Native was not backing down. She was going to go head to head with Samantha and not back out of this case. In fact, she wanted this to go to discovery, of which Samantha Markle had objected to it. So essentially what you're seeing here is that the respondent, meaning Native, moved in the alternative to continue the hearing and obtain discovery on the grounds that the respondent, Native, should be afforded the opportunity to fully and fairly litigate the so-called evidence that Samantha Markle was putting forward. The judge at the time did grant Native the request for discovery. But anyway, the petitioner, meaning Samantha Markle, and her partner, Mark Phillips, objected to the scope of discovery. Yes, you heard that right. Samantha Markle did not want this discovery to happen, even though it came back in the small claims court that there were no ties to Native and Samantha Markle in hacking any of her accounts, as well as being all the various accounts that had been bullying and harassing Samantha, all came back negative. So now Samantha doesn't want any kind of discovery. Now, why do you think that is? Now, I have a theory, and that's all that this is. It's me speculating based off of all this information that I have now delivered to you in what was saying in this actual court case. So now it's only been recently that this particular user on X has come onto my radar, which is this not a zealous fan. Now, I've actually gone through this account, and as I said earlier in this video, I can't really validate the things that are being put up here by this X user. But what I can say is after going through these court databases, a lot of the information that I have provided to you is information that this person is also putting up. There's some things that I just can't verify on where this person got it from. And it does give me the impression that they were very close to this case, if not themselves being attached to this case, because there's documents in there that you wouldn't be able to get unless you had access to some of those court filings, which I believe this person did have access to it. But I can't confirm and I can't tell you whether or not it's valid or it's real. However, I just want to point one thing out that I saw that did immediately click after reading all of this stuff to what possibly had been going on that affected not only this court case, but also affecting this whole entire community. So what you're looking at here is from that Not a Zealous Fans account, which looks very similar to the document that I showed you earlier on that I had gotten from the small claims court attachments that were in that case. What I want you to look closer at is this bottom paragraph. Apparently, this is part of the intake investigating the victim, which would be Samantha. And it says here, on 7/16/2019 at approximately 16:05 hours, the victim, which would be Samantha, and witness, which would be Mark Phillips, responded to the Northwest District substation in reference to a complaint of harassment. On 7/16/2019 at approximately 1700 hours, I interviewed the victim, meaning Samantha, in the conference room of the Northwest substation. Now, I need everybody to pay attention to this part. In yellow, she advised that since the royal wedding in May 2018, she has been harassed and cyberstalked by unknown persons over social media. She advised that she has had 2 email accounts, 5 Twitter accounts, 4 Facebook accounts, 3 cell phones, 2 routers, and numerous electronic devices hacked. That's all I'm going to read here. I'm bringing everybody's attention to this part, not because of the 5 Twitter accounts or the 4 Facebook accounts or even the 3 cell phones, although it seems rather excessive. But the thing that raises the red flag to me is the mention of 2 routers. Now, this could be very well nothing. She lives in this palatial palace that she would need 2 routers to extend the Wi-Fi coverage. Then that would make sense as to why you would have it. But the last time I checked, her living in Florida, or at least that's what she's told us, the place that she's living at, there is no need to have 2 routers in the home. Now, aside from Samantha doing media interviews and riding off the coattails of the royal family to stay relevant in the media, I don't see that Samantha would have a need for network separation and segmentation. Do you? Do you think she needs to isolate parts of her network to separate for privacy and security? I mean, maybe. You could have these 2 routers and create a physical separate network with different IP ranges. But then that begs the question, why would you do that? I mean, most consumers just really need to get on the internet, right? Now, if we take into consideration that it says numerous electronic devices hacked, how many devices are we talking about? Because a low-end basic router can hold up to about 20 devices. So you mean to tell me that she has more than 20 devices on the low end, that she needs to have 2 routers to fit the rest of these devices? Then what does that tell you? Why does she have so many devices? What is she doing? I mean, it is possible, but at the time when all of this happened in 2019, all those interviews that she was doing from that house that she was in didn't look like it was very futuristic to where everything was connected, from cameras to lights to TVs, thermostats, speakers, phones, laptops, etc. That house that she was in looks very much like the middle-class average home. Now, if we are factoring in the details of this case now, and Samantha and Mark Phillips didn't want to go to discovery, and you almost have to wonder, what were they afraid of? How many IP addresses does Samantha have in her possession? That would be interesting to find out. Now that we know that Samantha at the time had 5 accounts, who's to say that she doesn't have any more, and that she is using some of them not only to troll and harass people, which it does appear like that might be the actual situation, to where perhaps maybe all of this evidence that she had in these binders could have been from actual troll accounts that she is running. Look, we know that she was behind some of the disruption last year when 2 YouTubers went off to criticize another YouTuber. She was behind that. And then she was also behind getting another YouTuber to come after me, which I could care less, right? Now, could it be that Samantha has been the one who has been behind these accounts? Not only attacking this community, but also attacking herself so she could have evidence to fill that binder up with all these screenshots and saying, no, I don't want to go to discovery because it's just a violation of my privacy. Get out of here. Anyway, the possibility is there, especially since this person has 0 credibility after all these lies that we are now seeing, for not only from her book that's no longer available to be purchased. Why? Don't you think more people want to read about her upbringing with Meg to see how close she is with her? Or is it because so many people have found holes with her story? Especially now when you look into the database of a government database and it coming back showing that, wait a minute, wasn't she in California with Meg doing sisterly things? Why is she in New Mexico? Why did she finish DWI training or classes in Virginia? As I sit here and I reflect, going back to the time that I witnessed and experienced of where people were getting doxxed, harassed, getting canceled, demonetized. Let's not forget, Ashley, she was one of the first who called the Markles out, and she was one of the first who was attacked viciously. We had Yankee Wally. Look what happened to her. And I specifically remember people like Boozy, Sarah Data saying that there were people inside this own community who were snakes. And I'm not saying snake, I'm saying snakes, plural. Now, I originally thought that when that was said, they were trying to get into our heads to purposely cause division. But no, these people have been in this community right from the start. Go ahead to Christopher Boozy's YouTube report and see the list of channels that they had been targeting. My channel was on there and it got taken down. Other channels were there, but there were 2 YouTubers that really do criticize Meghan Markle, but mysteriously weren't added to it. In fact, I don't think those two YouTubers ever faced the abuse that some of us had faced, especially being put on a hit list to get taken down. No, they haven't. Is it because they had a relationship with the Markles? I don't know. Maybe. Is it because they have sources that are connected to Meghan? I don't know. Maybe. Do they know that they're part of a big scam? I don't know. Maybe. I really don't know. But I do sense that something is afoot just because I've been around long enough to see the patterns as well as to know when there is a coordinated campaign happening. And I do believe that right now we're in the midst of a coordinated campaign because I don't think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden Christopher Boozy pops his ugly looking head out to talk about how Meghan is being bullied online, especially on YouTube. Okay? It's not a coincidence, especially with all of the drama that's happening now. Don't think that these people are not watching. It is my opinion, but I believe they're all in on it together. They've been in on it together from the very beginning. Now, to show you how farcical this whole thing is, remember this that I showed you earlier on in this video, this statement of claim that Mark Phillips had put forward to go after Kai Native for $8,000? You remember this ugly looking handwriting? Now, as you're looking at this, who are we to believe that wrote this statement of claim? Was it Samantha? Because the penmanship looks very much exactly like the one seen in the Christmas card that Samantha had sent her dear old sister Meg back, I believe, in 2018 for Christmas. Or was it Mark? Due to the fact that Samantha has MS and unable to write. Man, when you look at Mark Phillips' signature, it looks a lot like Samantha's messy looking signature. So what we see here is Mark's signature looks nothing like the signature that is next to Samantha's name. Mark's signature is a lot neater compared to the chicken scratch that we see above. So did Samantha write that? Sure looks like it. Do y'all see the fuckery that's going on right now? Now, if that's not convincing you, how about we turn this up one more notch because I'm not done yet. Now, another thing that's very special about the Polk County Clerk database is that if there is an outstanding citation, it would be listed in there. And apparently, Samantha Markle had received a citation back on January 18, 2024, and had owed the city $264 that was due on 5/24/24. Now, I don't believe that was paid yet. I could be wrong, but I did not see it being paid. But what's even curiouser, forget that piece to it, is when you look at the license plate that they got on camera, what you see there is a license plate belonging to Vermont. Now, you could say maybe the car doesn't belong to Samantha. That's a possibility, but it's bizarre that she's driving around a car with Vermont license plates. Like, why? And if you're probably thinking, well, she has MS, maybe somebody else is driving her. No, because the ticket is in her name. She is the one who was driving, which now brings me to the point of Samantha having MS and wearing glasses. Now, look, I know that cars can be kitted out to be specific to MS or people with MS, but if the car doesn't belong to her and Samantha is driving, you see where I'm going with this? If Samantha has this disease and is losing her eyesight or her vision is impaired, she would not be able to drive. Remember this interview that Samantha did with Dan Wooten? Remember how so many people were saying that Samantha looked like she was wearing a fat suit? Maybe she is. Maybe she is. Because what is she doing driving around when her vision is clearly impaired, if we are to believe that she has MS? Or is that too a lie? Well, the one thing that I can prove to you that is 100% a lie is Samantha's claims of being in the Air Force. Samantha has never served or has held a position in the U.S. military. And how I know this is because Samantha is being taken to small claims court. As you can see here, 3 new entries that have been entered in. And out of those entries, one of them actually had to run a military check. And what it came back with? Here it is. It says, bullet number 4, based upon the response I received from the Department of Defense Manpower Data Center, I am convinced that the defendant is not on active duty in a branch of the United States military. A copy of the Department of Defense printout is attached here through as exhibit. I think that says 1. In anticipation of knowing my audience and some people saying, well, what if she's a veteran and not active duty? I got you. The Sugars went ahead and investigated all of this and contacted the Paralyzed Veterans of America, in which they came back stating that there was no Samantha Markle, or Samantha Grant, as she was going by that last name at the time, in the database. So you tell me. Now, I think that this is a good place to stop because I am approaching an hour on this video, and I'm sure many of you, your heads are about to explode. If you even made it this far, if you did, thank you so much for sticking through this with me so you could see all of this deceit. Now, the big question is, why and who? Those are the two things that we need to fully understand. Is this some sort of experiment? Are they watching all of us and doing this? Maybe. Is there something more sinister? I think so, because what I'm seeing going on with the division that's being caused by certain people who I believe, are being paid to do this, then, you got to ask the question of, why are people trying to hurt people online? Is it really for all of us to come to this place for us to say, yeah, we need a solution. It's so bad online. And I'm starting to see people starting to wave the white flag and saying, we really do need more regulation on social media. We need to give up an anonymity. People are willing to throw away their freedoms and their rights all for a little bit of security. And I hate to break it to you, but you're not going to get it because you really need people who are going to be behind enforcing it. And who's to say that we're not going to end up in another situation where we have all these laws, but it's going to be rules for thee, but not for me type situation. I mean, we're already seeing that. So don't get lost in the false sense of this security if we put more monitoring and guardrails and censorship, because ultimately it's not going to benefit. These same problems are going to continue. I think it really boils down to the individual to say, you know what? Walk away. I don't need to get into this back and forward, and I don't need to be a gossipy bitch going from one channel and then whispering to another channel just because you like the drama. Stop it. Just stop it, because what ultimately you're doing is proving Meghan Markle right. And that is hurting everything that people like myself and a few others who really have been here to do. I don't want my rights taken away, but these people are legitimately dangerous doing it. Now, this is the last point that I'm going to make before I sign off. You can look at this and say, well, you really dug pretty hard. No, I really didn't. These databases are all available to everyone here. It's not like I hired a private investigator to go out and spy on Samantha and anybody else in her family. This is what's there, and I have every right to read it and interpret it the way that I see fit and try to understand, because we have been put through so much crap when it comes to this whole entire saga that, I'm sorry, but I hate to feel like I've been jerked around. And that's what I feel these people have been doing to all of us, making us all look pretty stupid. I just don't like that. I don't like liars. I don't like people who are deceitful and manipulative. And this is exactly what we have here. So that's all I got to say about this, but I hope you all enjoyed it. Definitely leave your thoughts below. As always, I will be back with more content, but until then, please be safe and I will talk to you later. Bye.
Such a fraud.